Hello, this is Bobby Tewksbury with AB Athletic Development, and I'm joined by Chris Colabello tonight. Chris is the Baseball America Independent Baseball Player of the Year this year, also the Can-Am League Player of the Year, the Star of Stars. Had a pretty successful year, and he's with me here tonight. He was here at the facility taking some swings, and we've got him on video. So the link to the full video will be available probably below this one on the AB page and probably on Chris's blog as well. But I'm going to let Chris take over and go through his swing, and I'm just going to have him talk about things he looks for in his swing, things that he works on, and just kind of what he's looking at.
Thanks for having me, Bob. I've been a big fan of AB for a while now. Bobby's been a good friend for a long time. We're teammates for a while in Worcester, and a lot of the stuff that we talked about and that you're talking about right now is certainly stuff that I tried to implement this year, and I think paid big dividends, as was noted by all the nice things you said about me. So go ahead and get started. This was probably my first or second round tonight in the cage, and typically my first two rounds in the cage, really my biggest concern is my hands. Really trying to create a good running start, get my hands into a good position. The concept I like to think about when we talk about running start is not stopping the hands, really, and that was, I think, pretty pivotal for me. In talking about the commitment to the swing. So I guess here we go. I'll just kind of let it play through for a little bit and stop in places where I feel is important. As you can tell, I'm pretty stiff and sore by those movements because I've gotten back in the gym recently and just kind of working my way through some stuff with my hands right here. If you notice, I'm trying to make sure my hands are just in constant motion as the swing goes through.
Chris, I'm just going to interrupt real quick. If we go back to the swing, what percentage effort are you swinging at here? Just go back and go frame by frame. Like, what percentage effort, how much lower body usage do you have going on? Like, what's your intent with this swing, effort-wise?
I'd say I'm probably about 50%. Just trying to let the hands get going. My lower half really, I think because I worked on it so much last winter and understanding the concepts of, what the pivot really represents, and I talked about that on my blog recently, and kind of what the back hip needs to do in the swing. I think it's kind of a more natural thing. Usually in my first round or two, I'm not thinking about my lower half whatsoever, but I think still by watching these frames, it's getting into pretty good positions. But I'm typically in a game, I'm definitely a lot wider than that. The toe touch is the same, but it's just a little bit wider base. So I'm going to toe touch there. Now is really when everything's starting to happen. You see, the hands firing back as the front heel is going to the ground. The tip is happening, and there's the turn going on the backside, and then just trying to get it on plane. As you can see, I'm a little bit off balance. Some soreness definitely taking over in my body at this point, and I think I got a little spinny there on that one. But every time I take what I consider to be, not an A-plus swing, I'm trying to make an adjustment. Certainly trying to make sure that movement doesn't get repeated mechanically. And as you'll probably see in my next two swings, I would imagine I wasn't spinning as much, but I think the hands are getting to a pretty good position there. Pretty decent turn on the backside, and really working to get that bat head behind the baseball.
So with the last couple videos that I've done, we've been looking at the frames where the back hip is turning forward. I always saw the back hip turn forward and the hands also go forward. That's what I was always taught. That's what Chris was always taught growing up, is the whole knob to the ball, hands to the ball philosophy idea. So with this is something that we really worked on a lot last year throughout the winter, and something we battled about when he came up and first started getting introduced to some of these concepts. Was this movement was not consistent in his swing. This was not a part of his process. It would show up in games at times, but it was not there consistently. because the intent wasn't there. It wasn't something he was trying to do.
As a follow-up, we could probably use the video that we talked about earlier, in which I was really, one of my biggest concerns all the time in every swing was squish the bug, something I learned from when I was a little kid. And, go figure, a hitter that, I consider myself a pretty decent hitter, obviously having hit 300, the last 6 years before this year, but certainly not creating the production I did this year. And I think it had a lot to do, with the concepts that we talk about, and certainly something that I believed in. And especially when you get to that frame right here, you see that hip starting to move forward, starting to make my positive move. And, we're still debating on the terminology right here, but I think of I think of my hip going forward, my hands going backward, I use the word separation, and it's probably not the right word.
It's not a bad word.
We'll come up with some better terminology, but maybe we're pulling the elastic apart. Maybe that creating that good tension with the back hip and back oblique, I guess.
The issue that I have with most terminology that's out there is that it explains something else that somebody else has already tried to teach. And for the most part, most of this stuff is not commonly known. So if you use common terms that are already out in the world, people will assume that that's what you're talking about. So there is a need. It's not an ego thing of trying to invent something and be cool and do all this magical stuff. We're trying to make people better,
Yeah.
and we need to explain it in a way that people get it. So it's if you hear words, if you hear descriptions and definitions and terms that you're not used to, there's a reason behind that, and it's to make you a better hitter. It's to make you a better instructor if you're trying to learn how to teach kids better.
Agreed. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said we're trying to take our ego out of the equation, because certainly to think about the position I was in as a hitter last year. If you look at what I had accomplished and you go look at my numbers, I had certainly had quite a bit of success. So removing my ego from the equation last year was a big part of me getting to where I needed to be, and being able to repeat a lot of the movements that we've talked about.
Absolutely. So we got multiple angles here. I think we got one more from the side. No, that's the last one from the side. So we're gonna jump into. I got some overhead view. Climbed up on a ladder.
Safe place to be.
Safe place, right up top. But we can start to see some pretty. I talked about in the first video that it's hard to study video if you're only looking at one angle. You're dealing with up, down, left, right, and it's hard sometimes to see depth. It's hard to see the hands moving front to back. It's hard to see movement in 3 dimensions. And Chris and I spoke on the phone before we got here today about 4th dimension of time, 5th dimension of feel. There's a lot of things going on in the swing that just looking at a video straight on, you may not pick up on. So that's why I got the 4 different angles tonight.
Yeah, and here we moved into probably what was my third round of the night. Typically try to keep my sets at anywhere between 8 and 12 or 15 swings, depending on how the round goes. And starting to get a little bit wider base now. Really starting to use the trigger in my head, particularly of the commitment to the swing. And something we talked about is to have like a verbal cue with yourself. When I start my movements, when I start my load, I'm really telling myself in my head. It's kind of, and this is kind of juvenile, I guess, if you want. But right here, I'll start to say, as I go back, I'll go swing, and then if we let it play in fast motion, it would be a little bit quicker, but it would be swing now. And then when the now starts to happen is, I think, when the turn is probably happening. There at the back of the load. So if he lets one play through in fast motion right here, right here I'm getting set, making sure I'm ready to go, taking my time between swings, and then right now I'll go swing. That's a take. Swing now. And, I'm either doing that out loud or, within my head, or subtle, noises that, don't shock everyone that I'm hitting around, I guess.
This is the running start. This is the load being a movement, not a position. It's not just getting to a point where you can call yourself loaded. That elite hitters don't do that. It's a movement, not a position. And the more I can say that, the more people hear that, I think the better off things will be. And and then we can start to learn more about what that movement is versus taking a overly simplistic view of let's make things safe, let's get the foot down, let's make it so you have less to worry about. Logically, you can understand where a coach would say that if a kid's having trouble making contact. But ultimately, if we're trying to build really good mechanics, if we're trying to get kids to reach their potential, we have to give them that opportunity. We have to teach them what the best hitters are doing.
And you know, those are things I think too, Bobby, that I really keyed in on and trying to get kids that didn't really have a good understanding of the swing, you know, to do, because you know you're worried about trying to get them in athletic positions, trying to make sure that they're on time, and you know, the simplistic views of it, like we were just talking about, are very simple concepts, ideas that will, I think, you know, they're things, they're building blocks, I think, for young kids especially that need to learn, you know, I guess, how to do things the right way. But unfortunately, we're taught away, you know, from those patterns, from those good movements that they see guys on TV making. You know, I hear people say all the time, don't do what they're doing on TV. Well, you know, who do you want to be like? You want to be like the best hitters in the world, so why wouldn't you do everything the way they're doing it? You know what I mean? And, you know, these are all things, like I said, that I noticed. I think we talked about common themes that we found in a lot of hitters, and you're not necessarily looking at, you know, a specific stance or a specific, you know, direction of the tip, because those can all be different in the swing, in the individual swing, in the individual load. But I think, you know, you look for common threads in different hitters, and you know, Bobby was able to break a lot of those down and kind of give me the nuts and bolts of what he had spent, you know, years learning. And you know, obviously, I think, you know, this year it you know, it made huge jumps for me.
I want to talk about this particular take real quick. Um, this take is not, I wouldn't call it an aggressive take, where the pitch, you can see the ball coming up here, is not really near the plate.
I've already decided it's out of the zone, pretty much.
It's an early take, so we're not seeing him getting fully turned. He shuts it down, but you can still see the direction of the barrel and that initiation of the process that is going to exist in his swing every single time. The earlier the pitch is not a strike, so if the pitcher spikes a ball, spikes a fastball 55 feet, it's never a strike out of the hand. He has no reason to initiate the load. And I'm going to do another video tonight with Ryan Braun that shows what a clean take, an automatic take looks like, versus a more aggressive non-swing check swing where he gets everything going, everything's deep, and it's just split second, 4 frames from contact where things really get different. So this is just kind of a checkpoint that you can use to say, look, I'm not pushing my hands forward right there, which is good. It's not a bad process, but it's not as deep as he might get in a more game setting. If it's a slider that starts on the plate but breaks away, you're going to see a deeper process.
And that's a concept that I think, you know, was really important for me this year. It's something we talked about a lot, and I remember specifically one night I had a great take in my first at bat and of a game, and I ended up that game 4 for 5 with a homer and like 2 doubles. And I was more excited to tell Bobby about my take on the first pitch that I saw. I was, you know, I'm typically a first pitch take guy in games, and I remember specifically that night I told myself it was, you know, an RBI situation. I came up to bat, runners on base, and I said I'm looking for something to drive right away without having seen, you know, a pitch out of this guy's hand. And I remember I had a great take. I just felt everything working. I felt the running start just stay intact. And after taking the pitch, I said to myself as I was walking back across the plate, you know, I said, man, that was a great take. And then sure enough, next pitch, I hit a 3-run homer. So, you know, there's something to be said for that for sure.
All right, so I'm gonna stop the video right now. We're gonna do a part 2 for this because we still got 2 more angles. If you can't tell, we can probably talk about hitting for a long time. So I'm gonna pause this here and catch up with us on take 2, or part 2.